Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch, your own personal sales maven. I'm here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to truly master your sales conversations and so that you can make a bigger impact in the lives of your clients and in your business and in your own life and community. Now, today, it's one of those episodes where it's just you and me having a conversation, and we're going to be talking about how to write outreach messages that get a response. Side note, I can't tell you how many times I've stopped this recording and re recorded it just so I could get the term outreach out of my mouth. I feel like that's a success. Please celebrate with me. I'm having a moment here going like, thank goodness I finally said it. All right. So I want to share with you a message that I received. I'm going to read the message to you, and you might initially think, that's a really well written message. I would like to use that message in my own outreaches. Please keep listening to the podcast episode and let me share with you how this message can be improved significantly, even though you may initially think that's a good message. But really, it only matters if the reader of your outreach messages is willing to engage and respond. And in this case, I wasn't. And I'm going to go through why. I'm going to break it down. Now, let me start by reading the message, and whatever your experience is about the message, if you love it, great. If you want to try to use it, okay. I don't love that, but you get to decide. It's your business. Um, I think anybody who is a client of mine would know that this is the kind of message to run by me, and let me put my eyes on it. Let me offer some suggestions and tweaks to it so that you actually get a response. That's the goal. If you're going to spend your precious time and energy crafting messages to reach out to prospects and do some business development, I'm all for that. And make it count, because your time is precious. Your your expertise is precious. And so we really want to start connecting with people. I always say sales isn't about talking at people, it's about talking with. Sales isn't something that you do to another person, it's something you do with another person. So your messages have to engage the reader. And if you can't engage the reader's brain in a way that encourages them to respond, what's the point? You're just like doing the shotgun approach to sales, which is like spitting out as much volume as you can, hoping that something comes back. That to me feels like a giant waste of precious time and energy, and frankly, money, especially if you're paying somebody else to do this for you. Like, knock it off. Okay, so here's the message. And by the way, even if by the end of this episode, if you're still not on board with the suggestions that I'm going to make, like, you get to decide for yourself. I am not attached to you making this shift. I'm here to offer you training and suggestions, and you get to decide for yourself. And I'm totally fine if you want to reach out and explain to me why you don't agree. But here is my ask. Should you choose to not agree or like what I'm sharing, totally respect that about you. Please do not schedule a time on my calendar to get on a call with me to tell me that you don't agree with me. Just send me a message. That's enough. A kind message is appreciated. But actually scheduling time on my calendar to tell me you don't agree with me, please don't do that. That's my ask. Okay. All right, I'm going to read the message, then I'm going to break it down. So, hi, insert name. We are all being called to uplevel, expand, or redirect what we are doing. The world needs positive voices stepping up brighter and louder, providing solutions. I know you've heard from us a few times. I just couldn't help but share this because your voice has power and should be heard in a more expansive way. If you've thought about getting your message out further and want to be part of a team and a community to do it, I'd love to connect, hear about your vision, and see how we may be able to support you on the next level of expansion. I would love to chat and get to know more about you, understand where you are now and where you want to go so we can explore helping you get there. If you're open to it, you can explore more about what we do here. If you feel called to connect Here is my calendar so we can coordinate a time. Give me the calendar link. I look forward to hearing from you and talking with you soon. All right. Now, if you are an existing client, if you're a part of the Sales Maven Society, you know that this is the type of message that should you put it into the group, um, what am I saying? Like the private group, and ask for rewrites, you're definitely going to get some suggestions from me. I always call these suggested tweaks. The idea is you can use any of my suggestions or you can disregard them. That is your choice. But this message would definitely get a rewrite. And here's why: because the message is about the writer, it is not about the reader. And even though the intention, I'm assuming, is to be very kind and engaging, it does not engage the brain. And there's a few things that pop out. One, there are 5 I statements. I statements are like this: I look forward to, I would love to chat, I just couldn't help, I know you've heard, these, I'd like to connect, right? These are the I statements. I look forward to. These I statements are about the writer and they don't engage the brain of the reader because I don't have the reader, in this case, it's me. I don't have any kind of relationship with this person. They don't have a rapport bank account built up with me. So telling me what they'd like, what they want, what they'd love, what they know about me isn't interesting to the reader's brain because there's no rapport yet. So to engage the brain, like this is not going to do it. There's also 2 we statements. We statements also count in as I statements when you're talking about we, the company or the organization. So if I'm talking about Sales Maven and I'm saying, over here at Sales Maven, we, that's an I statement essentially. Okay. So in essence, we have a minimum. I'm giving grace here when I'm saying this a minimum because there's actually more, but the grace here that I'm going to give is there are 5 I statements, 2 we statements, and there are only 9 sentences in this message. So, right off the bat, what is that? Like, it's more than 70% of the message is about the writer. Here is what that just doesn't engage the reader's brain because most of us walk around, we think the whole world revolves around us, right? Like everything that's happening is happening to me, for me, against me. And if you want your reader to engage, it has to feel like it is for them. It is about them. It's for their benefit. Okay? Now, one of the ways that you engage the brain of the reader is you do it through questions. There is not one question in this message, in these 9 sentences, that I'm sure somebody feels is beautifully written. There's like a flow to it, and we're using like kind words. We're talking about vision. We're talking about expansion. We're talking about positive voices being brighter and louder, and we're talking about providing solutions. But none of these are questions that engage the reader's brain. So if the reader isn't going to engage, like this message is going to get deleted. And I'm certain just by reading the way that this is written, whether AI assisted in this or whether this person wants to stand in their place of authority and say like, I wrote this message, this is totally written from my heart, to try to connect with another person. It doesn't matter because it doesn't connect. It isn't about the reader. It is about the writer. And unless you have an affiliation or some affection for the writer, like not interesting, right? Like, do we really care about people who we don't know yet? Like maybe on a like human being level, we care about them, but we're not really that interested in what they think, what they know, what they want, what they love. Like it's just not interesting to us yet. So we got to ask questions. Questions to me are really a differentiator in a sales conversation. And the questions here, I'm actually going to get I'm going to share some psychology and neuroscience. Now, you can go and look this stuff up yourself. I'm going to share a little bit about it and give my kind of take on it. Um, by no means, I'm not a neuroscience scientist. I probably didn't even need to make that disclaimer. I do have a pretty extensive background in neuro linguistic programming, but that does not make me a scientist. And I do not have a degree in psychology. So, but here's the thing about questions. There's something called instinctive elaboration. And instinctive elaboration, here's kind of the definition of it. Questions hijack the brain and force it to engage in active thought, shifting focus from one mental task. Your brain is hardwired to at least think of a response to a question based stimulus. So if you're asking questions, the brain is hardwired to want to answer them. I always say and compare, like, your brain is like Google. If you go into Google right now and type in anything, Google is immediately trying to give you answers. Your brain is the same way. But in order to engage the brain like you do with Google, you have to give it information. And the way you engage the brain is you ask a question. So if you ask the reader a question in your email, you're starting to engage their brain. Their brain is hardwired to want to answer this. They say actually that their brain, you have to like make a conscious thought of trying to think of something else because your brain is just focused on wanting to answer the question. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to respond to your email with their answer, but they're more likely to because you've engaged their brain in some way. There's also this concept of cognitive engagement. This is a general term. It describes the mental effort invested in learning and understanding. Questions are a primary tool for driving cognitive engagement by prompting reflection and retrieval of information. Another kind of support here about how important questions are. Like, it's not just me saying it, there's some neuroscience, there's some psychology behind it. There's also the Socratic method. This is a method of asking questions to stimulate critical thinking and uncover new insights. They use this method in therapy and in education because it helps individuals clarify their own thoughts and challenge assumptions. Isn't that what you want to do with your prospective clients? Like, we want to engage their brain. We want to challenge their assumptions. We want their thoughts to be clarified so that they can make smart decisions. There's also the idea of plasticity. Boy, that's a tough one too. Outreach and neuroplasticity is two really hard terms for me today. So here's what this is. Questions act as a catalyst for the neuroplasticity in the brain. It's the ability to reorganize and form new neural connections. Asking and pondering questions literally prompts your brain to create new mental pathways. So it's almost like a pattern interrupt, right? Like if somebody's just going along and they have the same old, like it's easy. It's kind of like how sometimes you can drive home from someplace that you've driven a million times and not even remember doing it because it's such like just part of that habit. You've got this neural pathway. Like your body knows how to do it, your brain knows how to do it, and so it doesn't require much effort. So if you're sending out messages that read like everybody else's messages, the other 100 messages that they've received today or seem similar to them, there's no interruption here. It doesn't cause the brain, doesn't challenge the brain, doesn't prompt the brain to create any new mental pathways. So, here's like not related to sales, or it is related to sales, but it isn't related to the writing piece of it that I'm going to dig in a little bit more here. But I remember years ago, early in my sales career, they brought in a sales trainer and he taught us to, this is when like my first real professional sales job was what we called like dialing for dollars. It was just outbound call after outbound call every day. We had a quota of a minimum of 40 outbound calls every day, which might not seem like a lot, but it is. Unless, like if you've never done 40 outbound calls in a day, like try to do that for a week. It can be tedious, right? So it was this dialing for dollars idea. And the thing is like that was back at a time where, it was before cell phones. Like I'm old. Back in the late 1900s, when I was starting out my sales career, we had phones and people picked them up when you called. And the idea here was they were so used to telemarketing calls that people always would say, Did I catch you at a good time? That was the norm, right? And so we learned that if you said, Did I catch you at a bad time? It would slow people's brain down from the natural response of, Did I catch you at a good time? And they'd always say no. So when you would say, Did I catch you at a bad time? And their brain instantly wanted to say no, it either gave you permission to keep like the conversation going, or it caused them to actually give a real answer. So I've taught this for years. Uh, one of my clients from years ago, who's one of my most successful clients, she's a freaking rock star. I helped her actually secure a $10 million deal one time. It was 7 million, and then it grew from there. But she loved this, and she always used it. And I just actually was texting with her the other day. I haven't had a long conversation with her in a while, but she has used that so often, and she's like, it just works like a charm. This like, did I catch you at a bad time? So the idea is to interrupt a pattern. Okay, so the other thing about, I'm not going to go too much more into the neuroscience, even though I have a ton more of it here, but I'm going to move on because I feel like I don't want to beat it. I don't want to beat something to death here. So the idea is to engage the brain. And one of the ways to do this is through questions, right? Because right now, this message and the way that it's written, every sentence centers on the writer's wants, her vision, her goals. It is not about the reader at all. And there's no curiosity here. There's no genuine connection about the reader. There's no connection about the reader's needs or what's important to the reader. And the other thing too is there's these, I know I've called these out a little bit, but this idea of using these phrases like up level, expand, redirect sounds impressive, but it's a little bit muddled. It's like what is it that you're wanting? What is it that you're saying here? Like there's a little bit of confusion. There's also this idea of like, go look at our website. Oh, yeah. And schedule a call. It's like, what do you actually want the person to do? Because you don't even have rapport with them yet. Like, you don't know this person. And now you're telling them to do two things, two different things. Like, anytime you bounce multiple balls across the net to somebody, one ball is going to get missed. Usually both of them get missed. And if you want the person to engage, they have to hit the ball back, right? Like this is my tennis analogy without being a tennis player. Although I did do it in junior high and I think I got an award for it. Um, but I was terrible. So here's the thing is if we want the ball to be hit back to us, we have to make it super clear and easy for the person to know what to do next. So don't ask them to go and look at a bunch of stuff and ask them to schedule a call with you. Pick one thing you want them to do, be more clear. Okay. The other thing is, human psychology here is that people lean in when they feel seen, when they feel understood, not when they feel pitched. And the fact of the matter is, this message is a pitch. There's nothing to engage the reader. Connection happens when you make the other person the hero, not yourself. And so when you're writing a message that is from your perspective, which makes sense, by the way, this is not me bashing anybody because you have a thought and you type it out onto paper, right? Or paper. Oh, I feel like I'm showing my age today so many ways. Okay. You have a thought and you type it wherever you type it. And you so of course it's from your perspective, but you have to be thinking further ahead. You have to be thinking about the reader and their experience. So your thoughts, it just doesn't really make a difference, right? I will say I read these messages and sometimes I have a physical gag reflex to them. This one actually caused that, which is why usually if I have that, I think, how can I turn this into some piece of content that would benefit somebody in some way? I promise I'm not doing this for my benefit, because my benefit is just to delete it and block like these messages. I'm so sick of them. But yet I keep hearing from people when they first start to work with me and I see their messages and they're so proud of them. And I think like these messages actually sometimes make me gag too. I don't mean that is not shaming of the client. Like when you don't know, you don't know. Like you're not expected to not to know something. But if you're going to try to sell to somebody, like make an effort and learn. That's what I love about the people I get to work with is they're showing a commitment to improving in a way that makes the experience better, not just for them, but for their prospective clients. And I have such a huge respect for people who are willing to put themselves in a vulnerable position to learn something so that the experience is not just better for them, but better for the other person too. Like, I love those people. I love my clients. I'm so honored to get to work, to get to do the work that I do when people will be vulnerable and will share. This is the message I've been sending, Nikki, and it's not getting any kind of response. Or this is what I want to send, but I'm not sure if it's quite right. Like, would you offer some feedback on it? Right. Like, to me, that's somebody just saying, like, I'm willing to learn here. And also, there's nothing more like satisfying to me as a coach than getting to say to my clients, this message is perfect, send it. And I say that often, especially with my clients where we're working together one on one, those clients that have the Voxer access that are, sending me messages on a regular basis saying, like, just want your eyes on this. And I'm like, this message is perfect. When it gets to the point where it's like, the last 5 you sent me, I like, you got it, you nailed it, like, go. Like, they're so ready. That's theirs now. They own that. That's their expertise of like how they craft messages now that actually engage the reader. So it makes a difference. Okay. So this idea here is if you really want to engage the reader right off the bat, you have to start with a question. Start with creating some curiosity. So I'm going to break down a few pieces of the message. So instead of this message started with, we're being called to up level, expand, or redirect what we're doing. I'm assuming she's talking about we in the collective sense of like all of us, the world. Yeah, I get, okay, that makes sense. Because her next statement is the world needs positive voices, stepping up brighter and louder, providing solutions. There's kind of a nothing burger to this message, but if you just want to make a tiny little shift here, here's the shift that would potentially engage the reader's mind. Are you being called to up level, expand, or redirect what you're currently doing? Now that's about the reader. It's not a statement. It's a question that will engage the reader's brain. And then you could ask, would you agree that the world needs positive voices um, stepping up, what do I have here? Stepping up brighter and louder, providing solutions. Like, ask that as a question. Like, instead of making a statement, instead of talking at somebody, just ask them, like, would you agree with this? You may or may not get a response, but their brain is going to want to answer that question, which means they're now somewhat engaged in your message and they probably haven't deleted it yet. They're probably still reading. Isn't that a huge win? Versus like, I'm to the point now where I can sometimes get myself in trouble because if I can see in the preview of the message that it starts with a bunch of statements like this, they immediately get deleted. Like, I don't have time to read all this garbage that's just coming in of people talking about themselves to me in my messages, in my emails that they're wanting to sell. So every once in a while, I will miss a message from a client that are like, or a prospective client where they're like, hey, I sent you this message, but I didn't hear back. And then I look at the message and I'm like, well, that's because the first part of it felt very generic. It felt very much about like nothing. So, yeah, I don't say that. I just say, sorry, I missed your message. But like, okay, come on. Like, we can do better. We have to make it about them. We have to highlight what you notice or appreciate about their work. Give them a compliment, a sincere compliment. Like the sincere compliment here in this message, I'm assuming they think this is a compliment. Um, I just couldn't help but share this because your voice has power and should be heard in a more expansive way. But that feels so generic, right? Like, could you say that to anybody? Yes. Now, to give a specific compliment, I'm actually not going to do this one. I'm not going to give it because it feels like then I'm giving a compliment about myself because I'm the reader in this case. So I'm not here to compliment myself. Um, but make a generic, like make a specific compliment about something about the person's message, something about their voice in particular. Just saying like your voice has power, like right? Like give something specific about the person that they may agree with and or may feel like, oh, nobody's ever said that to me before. Like those types of things catch people's attention. And then offer a next step. Don't give multiple links. Don't expect them to do a bunch of work and a bunch of research. Invite them to get on a next step or invite them to, explore your website, or which I'm not a huge fan of anyway, but give them one call to action. So instead of like the message, which was if you feel called to connect, here's my calendar so we can coordinate a time. Okay. Here's my calendar. That's about her, the writer. If you feel called to connect, it's again, that's kind of a nothing burger. I just really hate these if statements. They don't engage the reader. So instead, ask a more specific question. Are you open to having a conversation to see if there's some possible synergy about what you're focused on doing in your business and what we're doing in our community? Like that's a more specific question that allows me to go like, yeah, maybe I am open to having a conversation. Then you could say, here's a link to find a time that works best in your schedule. Make it about the reader, not the writer, about my calendar. If you're writing, here's my calendar link, stop. You're making it about you. I know that you may not agree with that, but you are. And you don't need to say, here's my calendar link. Here's a link to find a time that works best in your schedule. You're still giving your calendar link, but the attachment to it, the holding on to it, it makes it about you and not the reader. Okay. The other thing too is always ask yourself, could this message just be copied and pasted to anyone? Because if you really want to connect with somebody, there needs to be some kind of connection and it has to involve specificity. It needs to be really about the reader. So instead of sending out 150 outbound messages, what if you took the time that it would take you to send 150? And maybe you're like, well, it only takes me 5 minutes. Okay, but if none of the 150 people respond to you, that was a waste of your time. What if you just spent 2 minutes, 5 minutes coming up with something about the person, like a little research? Do something that will actually give a real connection here. Because the thing about outreach, there's nothing wrong with it. Most of us need to do it to build our businesses, right? We need to be able to prospect, but it doesn't need to be gross and it doesn't need to be generic. So, little tiny shifts in what you're doing will definitely make a difference. So, take a look at your outreach messages and ask yourself, are there any questions in here? How many I statements am I writing? How many sentences are there? My philosophy and what I teach my clients is the 80-20 rule. If you're going to write 10 sentences, it's totally fine to have I statements, but 80% of it should be for the reader's benefit and about the reader. 20% can be your I statement. So 10-sentence message, just doing the math here and making it super simple for myself. If you have more than 2 I statements, that message needs some rewrite. Now, if you already have a ton of rapport with the person, you already know each other really well, they're already somewhat a fan, fine. You can have more I statements. But until that is in place, 80-20 rule. And then make sure you have a very clear call to action of what the right next step is. And again, needs to be to the benefit of the reader. And you will find that your messages start getting responses. You will start really making connection with people instead of just sending out messages and they just go out into the universe, never to be seen or heard from again. Like your precious time, your precious energy, and your mindset around thinking whether or not people want to engage with you means you got to do the work. Take some time, write better messages, and you will get better responses. AI cannot do this for you. I can tell you, I use AI every single day in my business. Love it. There's so many great tools about it. I use it to help challenge messages and help craft some things. But as many as many things as I, and maybe I'm certainly by no means an AI expert, but I know I've had clients now request having access to like a custom GPT that's like a Nikki version of writing messages. It cannot do this. I challenge it. I have attempted to create a custom GPT to give this to clients, but it cannot make these tweaks that I'm suggesting to you here. The I statements just continue to show up. It's just riddled with I statements. The lack of questions, they're just not there. The questions aren't engaging. The message is too generic. It's like that. I heard somebody describe this the other day in a podcast, and they were saying like AI is basically just like eating its own tail. It's just regurgitating everything else that's out there. Like, yeah, you don't want to sound like everybody else. If your message could be any business, anybody writing it, and to anybody getting it, like you just sound like everybody else. It's just going to go in the delete file. So it can be better. You can be better. All right. I'm here cheering you on. I hope that by the end of this, if you're still here listening, thank you. I'm grateful. And I hope you feel somewhat challenged to really think about the message before you send it. And of course, if you need help with your messages, like there's ways to get that. Come join the Sales Maven Society. If for nothing else, just to have a few of your messages like run by and let me show you what's possible by making some tiny little shifts to your messages. Because I just had a client write a Google review, and I think at the end she was like, "You'll never write an email again the same way after seeing what's possible." Now she made it more kind and specific to me, but this isn't about like patting me on the back here. That's not the intent of this. It's about making a bigger impact for you in your business. And if you're going to take the time to send out messages, let's make them count. They need to count. All right. I'm wishing you continued success. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.